Now, early on, a lot of people saw something in you when you were really young as far as how talented you were. And I remember seeing that you said that you studied Prince
Yeah.
when you were trying, and Prince is like my favorite artist of all time. And it's interesting, you studied Prince, but then you also worked with Michael Jackson. And I know they always talk about this like rivalry, Prince, Michael Jackson, but you never had the opportunity to work with Prince. So when they do these Prince Michael Jackson battles, what side do you fall on?
Oh, I'm totally a Prince fanatic. I didn't work with him, but he was a friend of mine, and we always talked. He always thought that I had this, and he knew that. Well, for one, when I started, when I did TLC, um, he wrote me a letter because he would see in the interviews I would always say Prince, Prince, Prince. My stuff sounds like Prince. It sounds like the time. I always wanted to be Dr. Fink. I always wanted to be from Minneapolis, and that's how I learned how to play keyboards, is playing along with Get It Up every day from the time. And he heard that and wrote me a letter back a long time ago. And I was like, holy shit. Because for me, I copied the address to Warner Brothers off of a Prince record and sent my first demo out when I was like 17, right? And I played in these bands as Dr. Fink when I was coming up as a kid. So I've always had this. I'm a Prince, hardcore Prince fanatic. I know every word, every song, every keyboard lick. And it's crazy when I went to work with Michael. Uh, I walked in the room and saw Jimmy Jam, and I was just like, "Oh man, Jimmy Jam! Oh my God!" I'm like, my heart dropped to my feet. I was just like, "I'm such a fan of yours, man! Like I know everything you ever played on keyboards. I know every," and he had to be like, "Hey, Dallas, that's Michael." And I was like, "Hey, Michael, how you doing, man? Bro." Like, I think that for me, like wanting, it was more like I always wanted to be Jimmy Jam. So I never wanted to be Michael, even though I appreciated Michael's music. I was such a hardcore Prince, and the Minneapolis sound and everything I ever grew up through all my blood was just like trying to be in Maserati, trying to be in the family, trying to be in Jill Jones or some kind of, crazy Prince band. And it's crazy because one of the first times I met him, he asked myself and L.A. Reid to come to Paisley Park when he first opened it. It wasn't even really all the way running yet. Um, and we show up at Paisley Park, and I see him coming down this long hallway, and he has this cane, and he's just walking. I'm just getting more nervous by the second. And he walks straight towards us, and then he gets to me, and he points his cane in my face and says, "Michael Jordan should make his own Nikes." And I was like, oh. He's like, "Exactly. Come here." And he starts walking me through these rooms in Paisley Park, and like in one room is all of these clothes being designed for him, like all of his outfits and perfumes, and like, and his point, he's trying to make his eye own and make everything. You got to be the same way. Leave out of that room. He'd take me to the control room. He'd start recording the song. And he's doing the backgrounds, and he's the engineer, and he's everybody. There's nobody in the room but him and the two of us. And he's doing backgrounds to Bet You by Golly Wow at the console. He does that for a little while, leaves out, takes us to another part of Paisley Park to show us. And his whole point was being like, guys got to get in ownership while you're young. You got to know to own your this, make your own that, do your own this, do your own that. And later on, he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, Dallas, come back and I'll do a concert for you." I'm like, "Wow, okay." So we come back, and this is when the internet first started. So he got on the internet and invited like 25 people. And we're all sitting there, and he comes out full moving sidewalk, smoke machines, full band, playing 1999. And then he'll just look at me and say, "What you want to hear next?" Like, "She's Always in My Hair." Like, 1, 2, 3, 4. And he had the band playing every song. And then at the end, he calls me and says, "Well, I got my favorite producer in the house. I want to bring him up on stage. Dallas, come up on stage." I'm like, "I am not going on stage with Prince. That's not going to happen, because he's known to like battle you and outplay you and outdo you." And I got on stage with him and ended up, just like I said, I went to the keyboard, so I know I'm not going to touch a guitar around him. This dude grabs a giant keyboard, like this big, come over and just starts battling me. "Come on, come on, come on, come on."
Oh my God.
I'm like, I'm so nervous, I just turned the volume down and just started going crazy, acting like I'm doing it, because you can't out not doing it. And we became friends, more than anything. I think that he thought because I was indie, so young, that he thought of me in kind of a different way. I called him one time and I said, "Man, you should take your name Prince back." Um, so why should I do that? I said, "Well, in all fairness, it's like it's part of everybody's life that grew up on you, like myself. And I said, D'Angelo has this song, "How Does It Feel," out right now that sounds just like Prince. And I just feel like the reason that is existing is because you just won't go do Prince because you're mad about the masters and the slaves and all that stuff. And as I'm, as I'm talking to him, through a fax machine comes these papers that keeps going free TLC, free TLC, free TLC. So I'm like, is that you sending this stuff? He's like, yeah, you tell L.A. Reid that when he clears up the TLC situation, then I'll take my name back. And I was like, well,
Wow.
you didn't do anything. But shortly after that, you know, as he started doing the Prince shows, he came back to Atlanta and called me for the first Prince show that he was doing. I got a surprise for you. And I show up there, and he's in a khaki trench coat with the red bandana, and he's got the Telecaster on. And I'm like, you're about to go do Prince. He just went out there and started playing Uptown. And I was just like, man, this is amazing. So yeah, for me, I've always been a Prince fanatic. Working with Michael was incredible because it's like, you know, it's Michael Jackson for one. After a while, I think if you don't feel the hype from him, you're gonna feel it at some point. He's gonna make sure you do feel it. So like I'm working in the studio and then hear the kings and queens of Africa walking down the hallway with people with rose petals like coming to America, coming and thanking for hospitals that he built. I'm like sitting there going, is this real or is this stage? What's going on right now? And he show us videos of people just saying Michael, Michael, because of all the stuff he had done around the world. And so it got to a point where I was really intimidated and was feeling like, oh shit, that's Michael Jackson in the room. And then one of the highlights was us working with Biggie.
Yeah, and you were a little nervous because Biggie was cursing. Like, I don't know how MJ's gonna take this. Prince wouldn't have went for that.
Oh no, Prince wouldn't have went for that. Like maybe the old Prince, but the new Prince had turned into you couldn't curse around him, you couldn't drink around him. He had changed. Like he had changed a lot in this sense.
You know what I wanted to ask you since you talked about ownership and how Prince's thoughts on masters. I interviewed Jermaine Dupri the other day, and he was talking about how this conversation about owning your masters is like, why do people want to own their masters so bad? He said, I think it's only Jay-Z and Puff that own their masters from the really successful albums and parts of their career. And then we've seen that Lil Wayne just sold his masters for $100 million or something like that. So what are your thoughts on artists owning their masters?
I mean, in the era that we came from, it was super important because the record sales were we sold so many records. So the masters are so much more valuable. Even the Lil Wayne masters, they're still including Drake masters. They're still including other stuff. It's not just Wayne's. But that era was the last era where before digital started to really kick in, you know what I'm saying? And really kick a hole in everything, where it's 40,000 records released every Tuesday. So this, I think the master era is, and the reason that everybody's letting you have your masters now, like even in our distribution company, you can own your own masters and TuneCore, load your stuff up on your masters because it became so much traffic that the masters become invaluable. Saying so like when it was only a few gold ones, then they're really valuable. But when you got like, you know, a bunch of, even if they got 1 billion streams, it doesn't matter because that master isn't that valuable if it's not an artist who's that valuable. So I feel like what Jermaine is saying is that, you know, if it was that valuable right now, everybody would be giving it to you for free, saying you can own it, right? It's something else that's important that you're not looking at. You know, you're not looking at a lot of times your songwriting and your publishing splits and your royalties and your radio royalties and stuff like that, which is where any of us are generating money right now is really coming from that standpoint of performing because the streaming is not getting anybody any money. So that's why, you know, that I feel like I seen where Kanye and them was going off on the master rant without going to check their own stuff because he owns everybody else's masters. He got Sean's and everybody else signed the good music's masters, just because that was part of, you know, the deals. And I feel like if it's a little late, if you ask me, for the on your masters conversation, unless you're somebody that's huge like Puff and Jay and all them, or unless you're somebody like Bieber who doesn't own his masters. He said they're universal. So I think it's really about your catalog and your copyright, and that's where they're squeezing you at right now. The master usage, they're giving it to you. You can sign up all day long on any format, TuneCore, DistroKid, BAD, any of them, and you got your master. You made it, you own it, you made it at home. Nobody had to pay you to go, you know, to make the master. When it's a real label deal, like if you're at Sony, they're not gonna let you own your masters. That's what they do. They pay you for your recording session. So when they're giving you $1 million budget and $300,000 in this and $400,000 in that, and you're already at the Grande, That's what they're doing. They're paying you all that money for that because they own the master usage of it. So I feel like it's an argument to have if you're a big enough artist. You know, I feel bad for Taylor Swift because she didn't own her masters, but she had a right that she could buy her masters back from them. And she could have went and done that. They just didn't do that for her. They just screwed her over like that. So artists like her, even if you look at Lenny Kravitz is a true owner of all his masters every day since day one. And that's valuable because when you buy Lenny Kravitz ever sells his catalog and all of his songwriting and masters and everything come along with it, that's a big, big, big sale. And that's like, you know, a whole nother story. Another thing they don't tell you, because I know that a lot of people are doing catalog sales right now. The same as Wayne and Bob Dylan, Red One. A lot of people are doing catalog sales because you got people out offering higher multiples right now for your catalog, and everybody's going, well, dang, if I'm making $100,000 a year and somebody's offering me 20 times that for my catalog, I should sell it, especially if it's an older catalog. But the trip is that under copyright law, everybody should know that you have 35 years in the United States that anybody can own your stuff. I don't care what they pay you. And this ain't what this is a forum I'm gonna hold in a minute. So because of some things I'm doing next year to change that narrative. But you can sell your stuff right now for $50 million on U.S. soil to a U.S. company. Copyright law says 35 years it has to come back to you. Nobody knows that. And what they keep doing is in your agreements, they keep looping around the reversions that goes back to the companies in your deal. Right? So Sony are having a deal where they have to come back at that 35 years and either it's included in your deal as an automatic reversion to them, or you need to know to say when you're doing these deals, hey man, don't include those things, my packages and my stuff. Everything has to come back to my estate in 35 years anyway.
That's interesting.